Hey, what's going on everybody? We're doing another video on the Hummer. So in this video I'm going to be changing the alternator out for a high output alternator. Factory alternator seems to work fine. It charges the battery, but you know, we want a little bit more than just charging the battery. We want to power a crazy sound system. So we're going to need a little bit of extra amperage, which this high output alternator will provide. But this alternator change is going to be pretty much the same for a stock alternator as well, so it'll apply to that. But if you take a look over here, we've got our factory alternator. Get this out of the way. It shouldn't be too difficult to take it out. There's one bolt down there, and then probably one or two more that are on the other side, but I'm gonna have to take the belt off. So I'll get to the tensioner down there, take the belt off, remove our alternator, and then we'll put the new one in and we'll see if the belt fits, because the new alternator might have a slightly different pulley. I went ahead and removed the little intake piece right here so that you guys could get a better look in here. You can see the belt there. Down here is where our tensioner is, and you turn it and then it'll loosen the tension on the belt, and then you can take the belt off, slide it right off the alternator pulley or wherever. Just make note of the belt routing. Usually cars have a belt routing right here though, so you don't have to worry, because it can be found right there. So there's that other alternator bolt that I was talking about earlier. So there's just two on this car, so we'll take both of them off, and the power wire on the back is a 12mm, and those two are 15s. So we'll take all those off, and then there's a little alternator plug that regulates the charge. We'll unplug that, and then after taking the belt off, everything should come right out. So this right here is the Serpentine belt tensioner, which is what we're looking for. So this guy right here, you can grab a 15 or you know, a wrench or a shallow socket. But if you just turn this like this here, you can see that the belt loosens, and then we can just hold on to this, slide the belt right off of our alternator over here, and then let this guy go. So now our Serpentine belt is off. I'm probably going to inspect this belt to make sure there aren't any cracks in it. Looks like there are some cracks in it, so probably needs to get changed. So we might just change that. I just wanted to make a note of these power wires here. I have an extra one going to the battery just because the factory fusible link here is a bit thin. So this extra one goes to the battery as well, so the alternator can charge the battery really good. But both of these wires are hot right now. They're both live. I didn't disconnect them from the battery. Even though the battery's dead, probably still some juice in there. So I'm trying to keep them from touching anything. But I'm going to take out these bolts that I loosened earlier. And sometimes it might need a little bit of help to come out, but we'll see. See if we can get it out without hitting it with a hammer. I don't think I'm gonna be able to, so we're gonna get a screwdriver and pry it out from down here. Alright, so I got my pry bar. I'm gonna pry up on this alternator, see if we can bust it loose. Looks like it's coming up for us. Slowly but surely. Might try to pry from the other side a little bit. Other side. See, that can always take a little bit more effort than you're expecting, but can't forget about this connector up top here. This guy just comes off like this. That should go into our new alternator. It's just a 2-wire, but yeah, we're gonna get this old guy out of here. So I got our alternator in and tightened down. Those 215s are nice and snug. It was a huge pain. It did not want to go in. There was a lot of tapping with a hammer and you know, coaxing it in, but eventually did get both the bolts to line up. That's the hardest part. And then I just locked it down. But you can see right here that one bolt with nothing on it that's sticking out. That's our positive from the battery. And that ring terminal right there is to run the car, whereas this other ring terminal down here, that's for the sound system, you know, to charge the battery. I added that extra, so that wire right there and the other wire are basically the same wire, but I like to run them both because it just adds a little bit more juice. So I gotta drill out that hole because it won't fit over that bolt, so I'm gonna do that. And then they want us to run a ground from the alternator to the actual negative of the battery, just so that the alternator can get rid of all that you know, current that it's producing. So we have to do that. We're gonna run that new ground cable. Typically you would run one like off the engine, but this alternator is nice enough where it has it right on the alternator coming off of the case, which the case is normally the ground that goes into the engine and then you ground the engine. But in this case, we're gonna ground it off the case. So I'm gonna get to that stuff and I'll get back to you guys. So I just went ahead and put the belt on, the new alternator. The little Serpentine belt is on. So what I actually did was, with the belt off, I took a Sharpie and I made a line on the tensioner of where it lined up in the full open position, and then I made another line in the full you know, contracted position. And I just kind of wanted to see where it fell when it was tensioning this belt, because of potentially smaller alternator pulley, to see if it's still in the safe operational range. And I would say it probably is. It's probably pretty safe. There's some markings on the tensioner there, and it sort of falls on the last mark. So I think it should be okay. Probably could go with a shorter belt. The belt also might need to be changed as well. I'm going to think about whether or not I want to change the belt, but something that would have been even better would be to just mark it at the factory location where it was with the other alternator if you're doing this sort of thing. I wish I had done that, but I don't feel like taking the alternator back out to mark it. So if you did that first, then put this in, you could see where it lies in relation to the stock alternator. But for me, I think this is going to be okay for my application. The belt has a good amount of tension to it. I really don't think that we're going to have any slippage or anything like that. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I just got to hook up the power and ground over there. So got a new battery for this thing, and it was a top post battery. So I had to do a conversion using some terminals. Quite a few wires in here, but everything has its place. I put a external 0 gauge wire for the ground on the alternator, and then we have our extra power wire that I put in previously, is this guy down here, and this is the factory one. So we got double this up and a fat wire for the ground here. So should be good here with all of our battery connections. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and fire this thing up and we'll see if it's charging. Alright, so should have seen the alternator start charging the car. The reason it was running so terribly is because I still have that piece of the intake off, so it was getting no map sensor input, so it has no idea how much air was coming into the engine, so that's why I was confused. Hopefully it didn't throw a check engine light. If it did, I'll just clear it, but yeah, it looks like we're charging, so that's awesome. I'm gonna still get a new belt for it, but that's gonna wrap up this video. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it if you made it all the way to the end, but yeah, stay tuned. The next video in the series about the sound system is coming out soon, but until next time.